Okay, back here again with Joe Henderson, a professor of environmental education, anthropology, and other things with the University of Vermont. Um, in the last talk that we had, you suggested that we need some new narratives, okay, to move the question forward, okay, rather than battling with these sort of old capitalistic narratives of the individual is in charge of their own destiny, and then that gets heaped on with the individual is in charge of the nation's destiny. If they fail, somehow the nation fails,
Yeah, right.
and all of that kind of angst, which I think is at least one of the contributors to the ways in which we find ourselves in these times, okay, and especially young people find themselves in these times as they're deciding careers and things like that. There's this notion, okay, right, okay, that we have this unending war, okay, between John Locke and Karl Marx, okay, which of course is, for anyone who spends more time than what we have right now, okay, says that's actually a little bit of a false choice, okay, but the broadest of brushstrokes, okay, say that, oh geez, you either have the government staying out of your lives and you go and do what you want, and as long as you do what you want, we trust you to do the right thing, right? That there's a assumption that the individual, if given that leeway, will do the right thing, okay? The opposing argument to that, which we rightly or wrongly, okay, ascribe to Karl Marx, okay, is this notion that no, that we actually can't trust the individual to do the right thing because they're going to do stuff for themselves and they're not going to care about their neighbor, and their neighbor's going to starve while they are rich, right? In our current debate about environmental education, this falls squarely in the middle of that fundamental humanities debate, right? Okay, is it about me, okay, getting my own little patch of the environment, so it feels good to me, okay, or is it about we, where I am participating in the care of the larger world around me? Okay, so so um, so you suggested in our last talk, okay, that there might be a new theme that we work towards. Okay, let's just play with that a little bit. Okay, what is that new theme that you think we might be able to develop some curriculum around, some arts around, some community engagement around?
Yeah, I mean that's a hard one, right? Like I don't know that I have the language for it yet, which is I think part of the problem, at least for me. Some people talk about sustainability, which is this very slippery term. As I was just thinking, as you were just talking about that, I was just thinking like I wish people would go back and like actually read Adam Smith. Adam Smith, who was actually quite socialist in his tendencies, yet also capitalist, who thought that individual competition was fine, such that you were actually benefiting your community. But that I think he would be horrified by the modern system that we have right now for how little it cares about neighborliness and things like community cohesion and things like that.
Yeah. So that alone, right now, okay, that alone calls us to get rid of a whole bunch of old binaries.
Yeah, right? I think that's right.
And the humanities are uniquely positioned to ask those nuanced questions,
including, by the way, a lot of misreadings of Adam Smith, right?
Yes,
who is I think really widely misread. But then you're going all the way back to the Greeks, who had different ideas around what is an economy for, right? Oikonomia, careful stewardship of the household or the commons, right? And then they had, what was the other one? They had Kresmatik or whatever, which was, am I getting this right? It's basically like accumulating money for the sake of accumulating money, and they were horrified by that, right? So, I think we need to develop some sort of system of care, system of provision, if you want to use the kind of Marxist language, right, a different orientation about the means of production, right, that actually takes care of people,
Right.
while also allowing for individual freedoms within that, right? And I get very uncomfortable when people start to go either direction, like too far in either direction. I come back to social democracy a lot because what it does is it provides a kind of system of universal provisions for everybody. And then from that you can develop your own kind of like flourishing and creativity, and you don't suffer from the sense of precarity that we have in this country right now. This is a very precarious country. And I think in a weird way that actually infringes upon people's creativity because it makes them less likely to take risks.
Right.
And so I think that's actually one of the things that's harming us. Is like the way we have such a precarious and insecure society is not helping us.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so I think that what you're saying here actually brings us into this sort of bigger question of the project.
Yeah.
Is how is it that we interact with the world today? Okay, which on one hand, we have our strong thread of individualism in our politics, in our national philosophy. Even though people won't use the word philosophy, that's what it is.
Yeah,
okay. Sure. But at the same time, we're asking people to think of themselves as together, and asking themselves to think of themselves as something bigger than their individuality. And so it seems to me that the climate change education question seems to be moving us toward this bigger question.
Yeah, or at least pointing out some of the weaknesses of the current structure, current situation. Right? But I actually was just thinking, I want to bring this back to your guy who's collecting bottles and cans, right? Let's bring it back to that. One of the things I really wonder sometimes about being in this country is whether people actually see people like that as whole, equal human beings. Because often in those kinds of situations, there's a power inequity, right, around the person who is the laborer and the person who is demanding the service. And so now I'm thinking of that famous painting, right, the bar at the Falls Pier, whatever, the Manet, you know what I'm talking about? The working class woman with the kind of flat expression at the very fancy bar. And I just think, I just want us to have a society where we look at everybody and see them as worthy and full of dignity and worth our support, right? Whether we like them or agree with them or think they're dressed appropriately or an immigrant or not. I think the vision that we have to have, I think, is one that is towards a kind of universal humanity. That that's the way we're going to solve this climate change problem. And I worry a lot as somebody who studies, we haven't even really talked about this, but I study nationalisms these days. I worry about that retreat to the kind of ethno-nationalism as a way of dealing with climate change. That's a violent future.
Right. Because in the ways that unfortunately overlaps with environmental anxiety and things. Yeah.
You can see environmental anxiety getting taken in really disturbing ways. And I fear that we may be headed that way. And probably what's going to happen with climate change is that we'll continue to muddle along. Some people will do that, and some people will be creating things that are more humanistic, and we will just muddle along. That's kind of where I'm at.
Well, that muddling, I think, is actually the place where our project lives.
Okay.
And I think that's a wonderful way to express it, because no matter who we are, when we walk into these places and we got a bag full of smelly cans, and we're gonna ask the person who is standing on the other side of the table to count those cans and give us 5 cents each. not knowing who that person is.
Yeah.
Maybe we never learned their name. Maybe we don't bump into them in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Maybe they're folks that someone who lives in the town next door. We don't know whether they have a car or not. But it's a pretty safe assumption that that's not a person who's the wealthiest person in that community. Right?
Yeah, and I think
right?
what I'm saying is I want that person to have health care.
Exactly.
I want that
exactly.
person to not be polluted unnecessarily, right?
Right.
I want that person to be able to adapt to to be in a situation where they're not going to get regularly flooded and then poisoned by black mold because of the increasingly intense storm events, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that justice component becomes really important.
Yeah, because that's the person who's given us 5 cents.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, during COVID, right, we had this whole conversation about essential workers.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, how that conversation has gone away recently.
Yeah, right.
And, like, there are a lot of different kinds of people that make society run.
Mm-hmm.
We should acknowledge that. Okay.
Well, let's look at this project as a way that continue this conversation.
Cool.
Okay, to get some ideas, some songs, some questions, some conversations that that might move some of these ideas forward. Okay, we'll be looking forward to kind of where environmental education evolves. I think in the increasing urgency of the issue that's in front of us right now. So many thanks to Joe Henderson here from the University of Vermont. Okay.
Bye everybody.
Yeah.